my name's Craig. It is 12 o'clock on a Sunday, which means it's time for a Q&A. Now, this is where I take all of your questions that you've asked over the course of the week, and I try to answer them to the best of my ability. Guys, I've got to tell you the same thing I say every single week. These videos live and die by the amount of questions and the quality of the questions that you ask. So if you've got any questions, there is nothing off the table. Leave it down below in the comments, and I will get to it next week. You've got to leave the questions in the comments to this video. It's very difficult for me to find questions if they're left on any other videos, because we get so many comments. It's very difficult to pick out the questions from other videos that go up over the course of the week. So if you definitely want to get your question answered, leave it in the comments of this video. There's some great questions this week. If you are watching this when it goes up at 12 o'clock on Sunday, I will be at the Wessex Magic Convention. I'm lecturing at the Wessex Magic Convention on Sunday. I'm going to be there all day. So if you see this by any chance and you're there with me, please come over and say hi. That would be awesome. But anyway, without further ado, there's a whole bunch of questions. So let's get straight into this week's questions. Okay, so the first question is from King OK, and King OK says, love the channel. Thanks very much. Best channel on YouTube. I appreciate that so much. You say that in your Penguin lecture there's going to be a trick with a signed card to a borrowed cup, and also in Chop there's the same routine. Is it the same or completely different methods? Very good question. It's the same. Basically in Chop I talk about in great detail about how you can actually use the Chop gimmick to do a signed card to borrowed paper cup, and I talk about all the different applications of how you can actually use that. In the Penguin Live, I do this multi-phase card routine that's like one of my go-to routines, and I finish at the very end by having the signed card appear in a paper cup. So I teach the card routine, and then when I do the card to paper cup at the end, I explain it uses the Chop gimmick, and I explain what the Chop gimmick is and how you can use it to do a card to impossible location. So I don't go into anywhere near as much detail on the magic on the Penguin Live as I do in Chop, because I don't want it to be an advert for Chop, but it genuinely is the way that I'm ending all of my card routines at the moment. So I wanted to include it on the Penguin Live, if that kind of makes sense. But I just talk about how you use it in that one context. But if you get Chop, I go through a lot more detail about how you can actually use that move to do various different effects. So yeah, very good question. You can learn it off Chop, you can learn it off Penguin Live, but it's like it's a 3-minute thing on the Penguin Live that I teach after I've taught this multi-phase card routine. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so the next question, stroke statement, is from George Pickard. He says he watches the channel. Thank you so much. And he's corrected me, and I really appreciate this, George, because I'm going to pick this up, so thanks for the tip. He's referring to a question I had on last week's Q&A about book tests, and is there a book on book tests? And I said no. And he says there's a newish book called the Book Test Book by Jim Cleefield that covers lots of different book test methods. It's very comprehensive. I didn't know that. Man, George, thank you for letting me know that. I'm going to go and check that out in the next week or two. So there you go. Referencing to last week's question, is there a book on various different book tests? Yes, there is. It's called The Book Test Book by Jim Cleefield. And George, thank you so much for letting me know. Okay, so the next question is from Jan Vollerberg, and Jan says, love the channel, Craig, can't wait for the net tricks. Well, it's now live, so you can go and check it out. Thanks, Jan. I heard you say in one of the podcasts that you were filming the Hows and Whys of Card Warp. Do you know when it's coming online? Love the trick. I have it in my phone case so I can perform it all the time. I also had another question on a different video that asked the same sort of thing, but it was about the WoW gimmick. And when's the Hows and Whys of the WoW gimmick coming? The answer is very, very soon. The Hows and Whys videos are normally about an hour and a half long, and they take so much more time and effort than any other video on the channel. It's why I can't do them every week. It's why I have to kind of keep them for... I try to average about 10 to 12 a year. So I aim for them to come out every 6 weeks or so. Sometimes they come out, I might have 2 in a month, and then I might leave a couple of months before I have one come out. But that's kind of when I try to average it. And this month I've been very busy because we've been doing the final preparations for Netrix launching, along with a whole bunch of other stuff I'm involved in and Ryland's involved in. So it's been really kind of labor intensive, and I don't want to do a video that's half-arsed for you guys. If I put something on this channel, I want to have poured everything of myself into that video, especially when I'm talking about WoW and I'm talking about Card War, because they are, in my opinion, 2 classics, and I want it to be as well received as the Quiver video was. So basically the answer is it's coming, and it's coming fairly soon. It will be coming fairly soon. I think the WoW video will come before the before the card warp video. In fact, I'm aiming to have the WoW video up either next week or the week after at the very, very latest. And it'll go up on a Friday. So I'm hoping for that video to go up either next week or the week after. It'll go up on a Friday. And then hopefully, I've got all of the stuff in place for card warp. It's just a case of explaining it and putting it all together. So hopefully that'll be the next one after that. Yeah, but thanks for your patience. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of hard work putting those videos together. And I want to get them done right, but they will be coming and they will be coming soon. Okay, so the next question is from Sheridan Coldstream, who I met at Blackpool. We stood in the freezing cold outside the Ruskin and chatted. Nice to meet you, Sheridan. He's got a couple of questions. Let me take the first one first. The classic palm muscle memory kicks in. Okay. As the classic palm muscle memory kicks in, does it become easier not to stick the thumb out? In all the serious coin workers emphasize yes, and yet my thumb is stubborn. Thanks for the continued support. Love the channel. Okay, I've got a coin over here. Let me see if I can go through this. So what Sheridan's talking about is when you classic palm a coin, and let me just put this down here for a minute so you can see. When you classic palm a coin, right? What you don't want, and for those of you that don't know, classic palm is when the coin is held in this position in classic palm, right? When the coin is, which is, for me, one of my favorite palms, because it's almost like having a sixth and a seventh finger. Because if the coin is in classic palm like that, you've got all of your thumbs and fingers free to be able to do stuff and do whatever you want to do, and that coin has been held in that position the whole time, right? It's a fantastic, an absolutely fantastic palm to get used to. It's also probably one of the hardest palms. You don't need it to be a coin magician, but it's very useful. Now, what Sheridan's talking about is when you see people palming a coin when they're new to magic, watch my thumb, they'll do this. Your thumb will stick out like that. And that's the big tell to tell that people are palming a coin. You'll do this. So you'll see people that were resting their hand and then their hand will do this. And that tells you that you've palmed a coin. And the reason that happens is because the coin is basically gripped here at the base of the mound of Venus. Jack, can you see that? I've got Jack behind the camera here. Yeah, Jack, you can see that through the view? That's okay, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. So the coin is normally held there, right? Okay, yeah. So in order to get it into that position where it's being gripped by the mound of Venus, this thumb needs to come out the way in order to grip it properly, right? And so it's a tell. You are right. When you do, you see coin magicians do this, and you can just tell from a mile off that that coin has been palmed. So how do you eliminate that? Well, here's the big tip that I can give you, and this is the big tip. Hold the coin between the thumb and the middle finger, the ring finger, and the little finger. So you're holding it here. Okay, a lot of people try to hold it here when they're palming a coin with the forefinger. You're not going to use this forefinger to hold the coin. And the reason is you're going to use the forefinger, you're going to touch the forefinger against the thumb, okay? So you're going to touch the forefinger against the thumb, then you're going to push that coin into palm. And that forefinger being touched against the thumb stops that thumb from jutting out. Just by touching your thumb and forefinger together, you can palm that coin and they're not going to see anything. So now, let's say you've got the coin in fingertip rest. You know, if you're palming a coin normally, your thumb would stick out like that. But when you've put your coin into fingertip rest and you rest your hand on the table, if you touch your thumb and your forefinger together, you can see that I'm going straight into palm, but without having any of that thumb movement, right, if that kind of makes sense. And putting your thumb and your forefinger together really kind of helps train your thumb to not move out. And then the other thing is, sometimes the larger motion will hide the smaller motion of the thumb flying out. So, for example, if I just turn my hand over and display the coin, what I've done here is I've basically, if I broke that action down, I've palmed that coin and turned my hand over, and my thumb has shot out the way. But the larger motion of turning my hand over hides the smaller motion of the thumb jutting out. So it's kind of like that. You don't see anything, but now I can do that sort of vanish, like a dump vanish or something like that, and the coin's in the perfect position to be palmed. So I can pick that coin up off the table, and even though I've that thumb sticking out, you don't see anything. So that's another tip that's worth noting. Yeah, I mean, the key thing is to it, though, it's practice. You know, one of my favourite uses of the classic palm is to just do this sort of vanish. I really like this sort of vanish. And when I do this, I show the coin, I show my hand. Notice my thumb and forefinger are touching together. So when I come back up, they think the coin's there, but it's hidden in palm. But they think it's behind the finger, so I can get this really nice, kind of almost like a retention vanish. So it's kind of like, watch the coin. I'm gonna show you something amazing. Watch this. boom. And again, I'm just using my forefinger to touch my thumb. So yeah, I mean, you are right, Sheridan. You want to make sure that that thumb doesn't fly out there. And the biggest tip I can give you is put your thumb and your forefinger together. So hopefully that answers the question and helps. Okay, so the next question is Illusionists Ed Zeus, and he says, it's not actually a question, but my favorite type of videos are the breakdown of your shows, kid shows, parlor shows, etc. You've done a lot of these, but you're planning on making one for a family show. I get booked for most of these events. I learned a lot from your other videos, but this is different because you can't do the same tricks in a family setting that you can do for kids, but you have to make sure the kids don't get bored. It's tricky. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. You're right, and one of my big areas in which I perform is family shows. I spent years working in holiday parks at places like Haven and Butlins, and you've got to be able to hold an audience of kids and adults at holiday parks, because really the success of you as an act is very much dependent on whether people stay in the room that the entertainment's taking place. Because if people walk out, then they're losing sales on the bar, and then they probably won't have you back again. So you've got to make sure you hold everybody. And it's difficult because if you play it to the kids, what tends to happen is the adults get bored and take the kids away. If you play it to the adults, the kids are running around like crazy and the adults take them away because they're being naughty. So you have to aim it just right. And it has to be something that works for adults, but it also has to be something that kids understand. So long 20-minute Q&A sessions using mind reading stuff really isn't going to work. You have to have something that's going to grab people's attention. So you are right, family shows are tricky, but it's not that hard when you get the right type of material. I'll do a video on this. I'll break down my family show for you, and I'll do a video. It'll probably be in the next month or two. It takes a long time to put those videos together as well, but I will put it together for you. It's a really great question. The big tip that I could give you right now for you to start working on something immediately is write down all of the tricks that you do in your adult show, or your show for adults, and write down all the tricks that you do for your kids show, and then work out a way that you could adapt the routines for adults so that kids would buy into it as well, and adapt the routines that are for kids that adults would buy into. And let me give you an example. So a classic kids trick that I do in my kids show is the colouring book, where you show a colouring book and it's black and white and then it eventually gets printed. Now that trick will not work for adults. It's the sort of trick that if you do it in a kids show, the adults are going to be at the back chatting because it's not really something that they're invested in or engaged in. So how can you take the colouring book and adapt it to make it work for an audience of adults as well? Well, Cody Fisher managed it. If you haven't seen Cody Fisher's 3-Kid Monty, it is an absolute masterclass. Basically, what happens is you have 3 kids up on stage, and you have 3 colouring books, and you show that you've got 2 black and white colouring books, and you have 1 coloured in colouring book, and you hand the colouring books to the kids, and you mix them around, and the audience has to kind of tell you which one has got the coloured in colouring book, and they get it right, and you go, well, they get it right because all of the kids look different, so let me see if I can make it so they all look the same. Look, I'm going to put hats on them, so you take crazy hats and you put the hats on them, then you do it again and they get it right, and you go, well, the problem is they need to have their faces covered up, so then you put crazy glasses on them, and it's this really funny comedy routine. Now when Cody does it, he actually uses a backing track that you can get directly from Cody, and it plays a little bit like Vanishing Bandana. By the way, Vanishing Bandana is another trick that will work in a family show really well. And he does it with a backing track. I tend not to do that. I don't use the backing track. I present it as an actual routine. But that's an example of taking something like a colouring book and making it so it'll play on a big stage to a family audience. The adults will find the whole concept really, really funny, but the kids will buy into it as well. So think about, and it works in reverse. What tricks do you do for an adult's audience that you can adapt so that the kids will buy into it? So for example, No Brainer by Bill Abbott is a fantastic routine that I do all of the time. You can very easily adapt that to work for kids and adults. So yeah, I mean, I'll do a breakdown on this. I'll do videos on this, something I've never really talked about on the channel. So I'll talk about it in more detail in the coming sort of weeks and months. But yeah, there's a couple of ideas to keep you going. Just start off by writing all the tricks down that you do for 2 different types of audience and see how you can adapt them to work for the other type of audience. Okay, so the next question is from Carl Chamberlain, and Carl says, how long should we practice for each day while avoiding burnout? And that's a great question. Really, it's down to you. I love practicing. I practice all of the time. And again, it depends on your definition of practice. Like, I'm going to be working all day on the laptop here today. I'm filming this on Thursday. We're getting ready for the launch of Netrix on Saturday. So I'm going to be literally sitting at my office all day working on a laptop. And I'll probably have a deck of cards. Well, Jack's behind the camera. Jack, when I'm working, what do I have around me all the time?
Too much.
Too much. I have cards. I have coins. I have sponge balls. If I'm working on a new routine, like I bet you, I don't know. Let me just check. Yeah, I'm working on stuff with chapsticks at the moment, which is why I've bought lots of different types of chapsticks, and I'm working on stuff with chapsticks at the moment. So whatever I'm working on or whatever I'm practicing, I'll just have in my pocket or I'll have sitting down on the desk next to me. But I don't consider that practice. I'm like working, but I'm probably manipulating something at the same time. So again, it depends on your definition of practice. You know what? There's very few times when I'm actually just sitting there having a proper practice session. It will happen, but a lot of the time I'm doing something else. Like a lot of the time I'll be with Ryland, and me and Ry will be sitting there watching new tricks and like following along to see how they work, or we'll be learning a new routine together, or I'll be teaching something to Ryland that I've done for years. A lot of my practice these days has gone from practice to teaching Ryland stuff, because the kid's just obsessed and just comes to me 24/7. It's very rare for me to just sit down. When I'm working on a new routine, a lot of the time, I'll work out the concept in my head and I'll have notes on everything on it. And then once I've got it to a point where I think, right, that's going to work, I'll then be fiddling around with it while I'm actually working at my desk, and I'll be practicing the moves and making sure that it all makes sense. Then I'll probably show it to staff in the office, or, you know, Ryland or Thea or Sarah or something like that. And then I'll get to a point where I'll put it into a gig and see if it actually works in a gig. So again, like I say, without labouring the point, it depends on your definition of practice, because I practice a lot, but a lot of the time I'm doing other things as well. I suppose the key thing is, if you're not enjoying it, then don't do it, or make it more enjoyable. You know, because the whole point of magic is a hobby at the end of the day. Yes, it's also a way of making money for a lot of people, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's a hobby, and it's something that you should enjoy doing. Right, you know, I hate fishing. My dad tried to take me fishing, and I hated it. I couldn't think of anything more boring than sitting at a canal for 10 hours with a rod dangled in the canal. I hate it with a passion. But I know a lot of fishermen who love it, and it's fun for them. So cool, that's great. Make sure that the practice of the magic is fun for you. And if it's not fun, stop doing it, because if you're forcing yourself to practice, it means so that you're going to burn out and eventually probably walk away from magic. So either stop doing it or make it fun. Learn something new. If there's a trick you're learning and you're hating it and you're hating the experience, then learn a different trick. You know, push yourself in a different direction, but make it fun, make it enjoyable. Go back and watch a video from years ago. You know, whenever I get a bit I always go back and watch the Michael Amar Easy to Master Money and Easy Master Card series, because that's what really got me excited about magic in the early days. And every time I go back and watch those, it fills me with joy all over again. So yeah, make it fun, make it enjoyable. But really, you're the master of your own ceremonies. You beat to your own drum. You know, decide how much practice you want to do, and then do it. Okay, so another question by Carl Chamberlain. I'm the kind of person who would work with the flu, but what's the best thing to do if you have a gig booked and you get ill? Obviously, I'll dose myself up if it's just a cold, because that's who I am, but sometimes you can't help how ill you are, and I would hope that this is rare. Does it say anything else? Yeah, okay, so that's a really good question, and obviously with COVID these days, we have to be really careful. You know, if you've got COVID, you don't really want to be going out and doing a gig. So the game has been changed a little bit in the last few years, right? But when it comes to being ill, only you know. And again, it also depends on the show, because if you're performing on stage, you're probably away from the audience. If you've got a really bad cold, I've worked when I felt really, really ill and I felt really under the weather. And I've just gone out and the adrenaline has kicked in, and I've done the show and it's been absolutely fine. You know, it's that old showbiz mentality, isn't it? The show must go on. You don't want to kill yourself. Absolutely not. You don't want to kill yourself. But realistically, at the end of the day, if you've got a client and you're physically able to perform, you should try and get there if you can. Obviously, there's going to be times when you can't perform. There's going to be times when there's nothing you can do. And my advice is to get a support network around you. If you're worried about shows that you've been booked for, reach out to fellow entertainers in the area. Reach out to other people that do the same thing as you, and say to them, look, if I'm ever ill, I'd like to call on you to be able to cover for me. Would that be okay? And put something in the contract that goes to the client. In case of illness, I'll provide a suitable replacement. In my company, Non-Stop Kids Entertainment, we try to move hell and high water to make sure that we never let people down. Obviously, when you're dealing with like 100 entertainers, occasionally people will get ill, especially with COVID. People will come down with COVID and there's nothing we can do. So, we've always got people in place to make sure that if there's people that are ill, we've got cover in place. And I think that's really important. If you're running your business and you're taking bookings, you need to make sure that you've got systems and processes in place to deal with something when you get ill. So I really suppose there's 2 points to this. Number one, if you're ill, only you know how ill you are. Like I say, I've worked in the past when I'm very ill. Obviously, as I say, with COVID, it's a totally different thing. And there's nothing you can do realistically. But make sure you've got a support network around you as well. Okay, so the next question is from ZT, and he says, hey, Craig, awesome show as always. Thank you, ZT. One question. I'm a hobbyist who performs mainly for friends, family, and relatives. Not sure if you've experienced this before, but have you ever come across the one smart-ass relative that is always trying to be a heckler? If so, how do you deal with the situation gracefully without offending or disrespecting that particular relative? Thanks. Well, that's I did a video on how to deal with hecklers, and this is a very different situation, because if you're dealing with a relative, it's somebody you know. And if they're being a bit of a dick and they're being a smart ass while you're performing in front of other friends and relatives and they're trying to one-up you or whatever it may be, you can't deal with that in the same way that you can deal with a normal person at a gig, because you're not going to see that person. So you can kind of approach it in a very different way. But a relative, you're going to be seeing them potentially for years to come. So you have to deal with it in a very different way. And really it comes down to the individual. If I was around, let's say, Sarah's family's house, because I don't really have much family anymore. My mum and dad have passed away. But let's say I was around Sarah's house and all of her friends and all of her family were there, and somebody asked me to do a trick. And, I performed a few things, and there was one guy that was being a bit of an arsehole about the whole thing. What I would probably do is I would probably get through the performance, and then I'd take him to one side afterwards. And I'd just say to him, hey, dude, what's your problem? I was asked to perform magic. This is my hobby. I enjoy doing it. And you're a bit of an asshole there, and you're a bit of a dick. And really, I didn't appreciate it. And they might not realize that they're being an arse. They might just be doing the whole alpha male thing, or they might not realize they were just trying to be a comedian or whatever it might be. So I'd take them to one side and I'd confront it. I'd say, look, I was asked to perform. It's probably going to happen again. I really don't appreciate that you're being a dick about this. Do we have a problem here? I'm going to perform some more magic again at some point. And if you're in the audience, I don't want to have to go dealing with your bullshit. That's probably what I do, because I'm very direct when it comes to that sort of thing. So that's probably the route that I would take, and I would probably approach it head on. Now, you might not want to do it as forcefully as that. That's how I would deal with it. The other way to deal with it is to just turn around, if he's just being an arsehole and being a smart ass, I'd do the trick. And then at the end of the trick, if somebody says, do another one, I go, look, I'd make it very clear to the group that the guy that's being an arse is obviously being an arse. And if he's been to the point where he's such a smart arse, I think people will realise. And I'd just turn around and say, nah, you know what? I only perform magic when people enjoy it. I don't want to deal with hecklers. I'm not a professional performer. I don't need to deal with that. Don't worry about it, guys. And the rest of the group would probably go, oh, come on, and shoot the guy down in flames. Now, that's another way to deal with it. I don't know if that's necessarily the best way. But the best way would be, in my opinion, just to take them to one side and confront it so that you don't have that problem again in the future. Just get through it, maybe even finish the trick that you're doing, take them to one side, and just deal with it that way. There is a third way. What you can do is, if you've got a smart ass in the audience, you can just Will Smith them. You can just go up to them, slap them around, bitch slap them around the face, and get my pack of cards out your fucking mouth, and just go all Will Smith on their ass. That's the other way. I mean, it probably won't endear you to the audience, but if it works for Will Smith and the Oscars, then maybe it'll work for you. Hope it helps. Okay, so the next question is from Sam Fuller Magician, and Sam says, hey, hope all's going well in the Petty house. Yes, thank you very much. Couple of questions. First, congratulations on the new chop. Thank you. For those that have the old chop, I guess the gimmick is the same. Will there be a download only to get rid of the new, to get all the new handlings? That's down to Penguin. I don't have anything to do with that. It's kind of a Penguin question. So I'd email Penguin customer support and ask them. It's kind of, I've mentioned it to the guys at Penguin, but I don't know is the answer. At the moment, there's only a physical copy in place. I'm always of a believer, if you like a trick enough, you have a backup. So, I mean, the other option is that you get a second chop. And to be honest, the extra gimmick, not the main gimmick, if you've got chop, you know what I'm talking about, not the main gimmick, but the extra gimmick that you use to prep the bill, that's actually better with the new chop than with the old chop. I think it's a much better gimmick. I don't want to give away anything else, but it's a much better gimmick, so it's worth getting it just for that. But you've got a backup. But I understand where you're coming from. But there's nothing I can do about it. But honestly, the new handlings are awesome. The Card to Impossible location, in my opinion, could be released as a separate product. It's that good, and I use it at every gig. So yeah, I'm sorry. It's the answer, but I don't know the answer to that. I've spoken to Penguin, and they've said, "Oh, let us look into it." But email Penguin if it's an issue for you. Email Penguin, and maybe if enough people email, they'll put a download option together. Okay, so another question from Sam Fuller Magician, and Sam says, I hate the hot rod force. What's your preferred alternative if you have one? Good question. So I tend to go down the Eric Stevens route, which is talking about how it's you introduce the hot rod. And if you haven't seen Color Sticks, you should check it out. It's one of the best downloads ever created. And in his Color Sticks routine, he uses a hot rod. And what he does is he talks about how it's a device to work out whether people are right-brained or left-brained. And he says right-brained people, they tend to be more creative, and they think with shapes, and they think with colors and that sort of thing, while left-brained people tend to be more analytical, and it's all about numbers and stuff like that. Let's do an experiment. I've got a stick with 6 different colors on it. What color stands out to you? Now, I tend to find that with the hot rod, my force is red, which is you can get those sticks directly from Eric. 80% of people tend to go with red. I don't know why, but 80% of people tend to go with red. And if they say red, you go, brilliant. Let me ask you a question. You go into the routine. If they say red, you're done. You go with the routine. If they say a different color, you go, interesting. And if I asked you to name a color from 1 to 6, what color? What number would you name? 4. Brilliant. Okay. Well, that tells me you're analytical. So let's use the number. And he goes into the traditional hot rod force. But I tend to find more often than not, most people will say the force color. Now, that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is to have a couple of people name colors. So let's say your force color's red and you're performing to a group of like 4 or 5 people. You go, right, okay, what's your favorite color on this? Green. Okay, what's your favorite color? Red. What's your favorite color? Yellow. You get a couple of people to name colors, and then you go, well, you know what? I'm getting a kind of a vibe from you. Is it okay if I use you? Would that be all right? Yeah. Okay, brilliant. We're going to use you. What was your favorite color again? And you act like you haven't remembered it, but obviously you have now almost forced the color on people by having everyone name a different color and just picking the person that named the color that you want them to name. Again, if that kind of makes sense for you. And that feels, I don't know how that comes across with me speaking it to you, but in an actual performance situation, it's very natural. It's like, I've got a stick here, there's 6 different colors on it. Let me ask you a question. What's your favorite color on here? Green. Okay, what's your favorite color? Yellow. What's your favorite color? Red. What's your favorite color? Blue. That's really interesting. Everyone's got a kind of a different favorite color. I'm getting a vibe from you right there. I'm going to use you for this, if that's okay. You look very excited about that. I can't remember. What was your color? It was red. Okay, let's use red. That's fine. It's not really about the color. It's about you. and then you go into it. So that's another way you can do it. And the other way that I've played around with in the past is to do a timing force. Now, if you know the, have I got a deck of cards here? Is this a deck of cards? I don't know what I have. This looks like a deck of cards. Yay, it's a deck of cards. If you know the timing force, where you're cutting small packets and you have them say stop. So let's say I wanted to force the King of Diamonds. Jack, behind the camera, as I cut cards onto the table, just say stop.
Stop.
Right there. Do you want one more cut? Or are you okay?
I'm good.
You want? There you are, King of Diamonds. That's the timing force. You can actually use that same timing force with a hot rod. So you can say to somebody, look, there's 6 different colours here. I'm going to run my finger along them one at a time. Just say stop anytime you want to. And by the time you say you stop talking, you're on the second colour. So now, bearing in mind, we know where the hot rod force is, right? We know where where the hot rod thing is. If you then go boom, boom, they're going to stop you before they get to the end because they don't want to get to the end. 99 times out of 100, you're going to stop on the colour that you're trying to force. And it's just a balls thing. Just try it. Just go, okay, I've got this stick here. There's 6 different colours. I'm going to run my finger along the 6 colours and tap them one at a time. Anytime you want to, just say stop. And they'll stop pretty much every single time on that colour. So there's 3 different options on how you can actually use the hot rod force, how you can force the colour on the hot rod without using a hot rod force. Hope that helps. Okay, so I've got another question with Carl Chamberlain, and Carl says, is public liability insurance necessary for all magicians and entertainers these days? And if so, is equity membership best? I see a lot of venues asking for entertainment to have PLI now. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a member of Equity, but I've got almost everybody I know is. The reason I'm not a member of Equity is because obviously running a big company, we have a company that does, like director insurance, company insurance, public liability insurance. There's about 7 different insurances that we need, and that public liability insurance is kind of thrown in for individuals and also for the company. And in terms of the benefits for Equity, in my opinion, are A, the legal advice, but we've got our own lawyers. B, the insurance, but we've got our own insurance. And C, just the meetups and the information that they give you, which I've already got access to. So I'm not a member of Equity, but I have been told that the insurance, the insurance that you can get through Equity is very well priced and so on and so forth. If it's only insurance that you're wanting, my advice is to have just a look around and just Google public liability insurance for individuals and get a couple of quotes. And if it comes in cheaper than Equity, maybe that's the one you want to go for. Just do a bit of research, to be honest, but Equity is the one that most people tend to go for. But in answer to your first part of the question, yes, you do need public liability insurance. Pretty much most corporates and most event planners will ask you for it. It's kind of expected that most people that are providing a service at an external event now will have public liability insurance. It's a very important thing to have as an entertainer. So yeah, you want to absolutely get PLI as soon as you can, really. Okay, so the next question is Ray Chenine. How you doing, Ray? I have a quick question. What's your favourite peak technique when a card is being selected by a spectator? Very good question. Again, it very much depends on the environment. It depends on where I'm performing and a whole bunch of different stuff. So a lot of the time, if I'm wanting it, so for people that don't know, peak technique is peeking a card when it's being selected. For years, I just did a convincing control and an all-round square up. So for years, I would have someone touch a card. I would show them the card. I would look away and make a big deal of the fact that I'm looking away. And I would do a convincing control. I'd have them put the card into the deck. And then I'd just do an all-round square up, which allows me to peek the bottom card, which is the 3 of clubs. Then it depends on the routine. A lot of the time, I just cut the card into the middle of the deck and give it them to shuffle. Or if I need it, because it's on the bottom, I can just cop it straight off into a gambler's cop. But that's a really direct way of actually doing a peek, because you just go touch a card. I'm not going to have a look at that card. Remember, it's really important that you remember that card. I'm going to leave it down in the middle of the deck. You can push it in yourself. Is that fair? Yeah. Give the cards a shuffle, and it's the 10 of hearts. And I've never seen many people using the convincing control as a peak, but it works really well. Now, there's obviously these peaks here that work from this, and One of my favourite ones here is you just look away and you riffle and you have them say stop. Wherever they say stop, you catch a break, right? So you've got a break at that point. So you've got a break below their card. Now what you can do, and I'll expose this from underneath, is I'm keeping the break with my thumb, right? And I can use my little finger to kick the bottom packet over to the right ever so slightly, which means that when I do an all-round square up, I can see that 2 of spades right there. So as I do an all-round square up, I can see the 2 of spades as I square it up and I close that break. So in full speed, it kind of looks like this. Jack, just say stop for me.
Stop.
Can you see that card?
Yep.
Fantastic. Remember the card. It's really important you remember the card. Please don't forget it. And ironically, that was the 2 of spades again, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Weird. Yeah, there you go. What do you mean, how do I know? I literally just explained it. He's tapping away at a computer over there, so I don't think he's paying any attention.
Just doing my job.
That's a really nice one. So again, you just say stop. They say stop. You just kick it over to the side like this, and just do an all-round square up, 5 of clubs. The final one, this used to be a really popular one years ago. A guy called John Tremaine taught this on an old Tricker tape videotape. And the idea is that you do a dribble and you have them say stop. So they say stop wherever they want to. Wherever they say stop, you show them the card like this, but you bend it inwards like this. Do you see I'm giving it like a concave bend? And that bend allows me to see the pip of that card right there. I can see that's the 3 of clubs. So it looks like this. Do me a favour, just say stop. Stop. Can you look at that card? I've got the 3 of clubs again. How weird is that? So just say stop, stop. There you go. Have a look at that card. Don't forget it. And I can see that that's the Jack of clubs. But you can see it very quickly, and then you can look away. So you can say, look at that card. I'll look away. And now I can see it was the 2 of hearts. So there's 3 different peaks there. That one's actually quite disarming because, you know, you're getting the peak as you're showing it them as well. And I know it kind of, magicians are probably thinking, well, that looks kind of a little bit dodgy. To a layman, it doesn't. But there you go. There's 3 different ways that you can peek a card there. Pick whichever one you like the look of. Okay, so the next question is from Godzilla47. And Godzilla47 says, a bit of an ethical question. You go for an online search for a magic trick, find one interesting, but while watching the trailer, you figure out how it works. Should you buy it? Or as you figure out how it works, do you just make your own version? It is a very ethical question, and it's really down to you as the person. Here's the thing, from a creator's point of view, I would always buy the trick, even if I'd worked out how it was done from watching the trailer. For 2 reasons. One, you wouldn't have figured out that trick. You wouldn't have come up with the concept of that trick if you hadn't actually watched the trailer. So the fact that you've watched the trailer, and that trailer is based on a trick that somebody has put time and effort into creating the premise for, creating the hook for, creating whatever it is that the routine does. They've put that together. They've come up with this concept. And then what happens is you've gone and looked at it and you've gone, you know what, I can make that myself. Realistically, I think you should support the creator because they've put time and effort and hard work into making that the trick that you saw on the trailer. And to just go, you know what, I can make that myself, I think is a bit of a disservice to the creator. Secondly, one of the things that people, end consumers in the magic community, bang on about all of the time, and rightfully so, is honest trailers. The amount of time I've heard people say, I just want to see a performance of the trick. I just want to see a performance of the trick. And I love it when trailers give you a performance of the trick because you see exactly what it is that you're buying. The reason some tricks you don't see a full performance is because you might be able to work it out from watching a full performance with a bit of magical knowledge. Now, you can't have it both ways. We can't, as a community, moan at creators and go, hang on a minute, I want a full trailer. This trailer's bullshit. It doesn't tell me anything. It's a Michael Bay style Hollywood special effects. It doesn't tell me anything. I just want to know what the trick is so I know whether I can spend my hard-earned money on it. We can't do that and in the same breath go, but you know what? I just worked out how that trick's done because that guy put an honest performance on there. I'm just going to take that and make it my own and not pay him the money that he deserves because he created it in the first place. And the third point is, you don't know what's on that project. And what I mean by that is, could you potentially maybe work out how chop works from the trailer? Yes. However, it's a 3-hour download. I'm going to go into a lot more detail on that tutorial than just what you've seen in the trailer. Just because you've seen one part in the trailer, it doesn't mean that you're not going to learn a whole bunch of other stuff from watching the tutorial. So you're going to miss out on a lot of value. And if you like the trick that's presented, you're just getting a very small, specific amount of what that creator's put into it. So from my point of view, as a creator with my creator hat on, I'd say absolutely support the creator. Now, obviously, you have to acknowledge the fact that there's a lot of people out there with not very much money. You know, there's people out there that haven't got much money, and spending $10 on a download is a big deal. You know, and I hate it when I buy something like the N-Pad, for example. I hate it when I bought the N-Pad and I spent hundreds of pounds on that, and it was an absolute bag of crap. It's why I got so upset with it, and I broke it in half and chucked it in the bin, right? So the other thing that you need to consider is, you know, there's going to be people out there that haven't got much money. There's going to be kids with not much pocket money, and I don't want to say that I'm okay with people making their own version of the trick, but if you haven't got any money, if you can't afford to buy the prop for whatever reason, and you're using that trailer as a source of inspiration to create your own version of the trick, there's an argument to say that that's okay. But again, there's a line, and which way do you go on the line, and which day do you cross it? It's a very good question. It's a very ethical, it's a very ethical dilemma, really. So that's kind of where I fall on this. I understand both sides of the camp. I'm more towards the whole, well, don't copy it, really. But if you want to be inspired by it, like I've been inspired by stuff in the past, but then I've gone and bought the original. So, I mean, I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I would love to know people's thoughts. What are your thoughts about this whole ethical dilemma? Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, so the next question is from Zombie Guy MC, and Zombie Guy MC says, "Hey Craig, I have a question. What is your proudest product release, and which of your own products would you recommend most overall?" Realistically, I'd recommend all of them except for Red, which you can't get anymore anyway. I even back in the day when I was creating 10, 11 years ago, but more so now since I've come back to the Magic community, I don't release things just for the sake of releasing them. I don't release things to make money from that release. That's not my MO. That's not my reason for releasing Magic. So I'm only going to release something if I feel that it adds value to the Magic community, if I feel I can put something out there. So when Penguin approached me about re-releasing Chop, it was very much a case of, well, yeah, I'd love to do this because I'm very passionate about Chop, but only if we can add value. I don't want it to be just a repackaged Chop with different packaging and they're getting exactly the same routine that they got 10 years ago. It needs to be different. It needs to add something. That's very, very important to me. And when the new KeyMaster comes out, it's the same thing. If I had to zone in on one product, to be honest, I think it would be KeyMaster. I absolutely love the thinking behind that routine and behind having the hole on the stem. And when you guys see the new KeyMaster with the 14 routines that are included with it, I've created more of an act around it. So you can literally go out with just some keys on your keychain and you can do like a 15-minute act. I'm very proud of that. I was very proud of it when it first came out, but I'm even more proud of it now. So I've had to say one, I'd say KeyMaster. Although, to be honest, the thing I'm most proud of is the Netrix. It's a vision that I had years and years and years ago, and it's took 2 years of myself and my team working really hard to get to the point that it's now ready. And genuinely, I kind of look at it as my magnum opus to the Magic community. It's the most important work I've ever done. I genuinely believe that as an industry, we're shifting. You know, many, many years ago, it was videotapes, and then that shifted to DVDs, and then that shifted to downloads. And then recently, in recent times, although downloads have still been a thing, it shifted again to single trick releases and physical products. And I think that we're seeing a shift to streaming platforms and things like that, where you can have access to a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm very proud of what I've done with the Netrix, purely because, you know, I looked at everything else out there and I wanted to just try and make the Netrix better. It's why there's a huge sleight section. So you've got everything that you need at your disposal. It would have been very easy to just say, here's a load of tricks. But we didn't. We said, hey, here's a load of tricks. And by the way, everything's in there. So you've got your own landing page for each trick. It tells you the difficulty rating. It tells you the sleights that you need. When you go in to learn it, it's broken down step by step. If you need a sleight, there's a direct link that takes you to that sleight within the sleight section. It's why there's separate videos on marketing, there's separate videos on theory, there's separate videos on upskilling yourself as a performer. It's everything I wanted. If I was getting into magic today, it's everything I wanted, and the scale of it is just mammoth. You know, I just love the whole infrastructure behind it. It's not just a series of blog posts. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I wanted the Netrix to be more. I wanted it to be a full platform where it's, you know, you've got a dashboard, you've got categories, you can search for everything. There's a community. I'm very proud of the Netrix. If I had to say one thing, I'd probably say the Netrix. Okay, so the next question is the drunk magic ukulele player. Hi, Craig. What are your thoughts on hypnotism? Do you think it's real, or are some people more suggestible? Do you think it's fair to use magic in a hypnotism show to make you look more capable? Really, I don't do hypnotism. I've never really been involved in hypnotism at all. I've seen people like James Brown and Mark Lavelle do hypnotism, and it always gets a great reaction. At the end of the day, it's the reaction to the audience that matters. I interviewed Rob Temple on this channel about his hypnotism shows, and he was very forthcoming about them and very forthcoming. It's well worth checking that interview out. I think it's a valid thing. You know, is hypnotism real? I'm not sure. I kind of sit here and think, if I was in a show, I don't think I'd be hypnotized. But as I've never been in a show, I wouldn't know, and I don't know. I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I lean towards people are feeling suggestible. I lean towards that, but you never know, do you? At the end of the day, I'm not 100% sure. The thing I'd say is, you know, there's hypnotists out there that are making a good living, and the audiences are happy, and everyone's having a great time. And really, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. Okay, one more question from the drunk magic ukulele player. I'm a hobbyist, and I've been asked to do my first ever walk around gig for my local. I'm doing it for free, but do you think it's worth having a spare pair of boxer shorts in my close-up case in case I get a nervous stomach? Yes, and probably brown trousers as well, depending on the type of pub that you're going into. Some of the pubs I worked in my early days, I wish I had like 4 pairs of brown trousers in the car. So yeah, take some boxer shorts. If you think you're going to need them, take them. Okay, so the next question is KJ and Alex Fitzpatrick, and they both say, when's the new KeyMaster released? And the answer is, I don't know. It's filmed, they've got the keys, they've got the packaging, they've got the tutorial, they've got the live performances, they got everything else they need. It was one of the multiple projects that I filmed when I went over to Penguin. They've just released Chop. I imagine the next one they'll release is KeyMaster. And, you know, I know they're at Magic Live. I'm at Magic Live. It's only next month. So, you know, I would imagine if I was the CEO of Penguin, if I was a jar, I'd probably do it at Magic Live. But also, I don't know what their schedule is. I mean, I know that they've got lots of artists and lots of projects. So it might be not. It might not. I don't know. But I would guess very soon. And as I know more, I will keep you guys updated. Okay, so the next question is Dan Ryan. Dan says, feel free to let me know if this needs to ask privately, but I bought Beyond Stebbins and I didn't get on with the gaffed part of it. I was hoping on some advice for the best ways I could redo the gaff for Beyond. Apologies for keeping this intentionally vague as possible, but I'm sure you get the point. Right, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, okay, so without giving too much away, because the Beyond Stebbins project has had so much really great feedback, and what the Beyond Stebbins is it's a collection of routines with a deck that's set up in Stebbins, but there's a gaffed element to it as well. And even though the deck is gaffed, it can still be examined, because it is absolutely possible to hand a gaffed deck out and have it examined, despite what some people will say. And I'll tell you for now what the gaffed element is the backs of the, I don't mind giving this away because without the routines, it's not going to help at all. The backs of the decks are roughed, and they're roughed so that you can handle them as a normal deck. You can do any normal routines that you'd want to do with that deck, and the gaffing and the roughing doesn't get in the way of any of it. You can cut the cards if you want to. You can shuffle the cards. You can do any Stebbins routine that you want to do. There's multiple Stebbins routine on the project that you can do, but at any point you have access to the gaffing, which allows you to do stuff like the invisible A-can and stuff like that that's on the project. So yeah, I mean, basically, when you're talking about roughing spray, if you want to rejuvenate your deck, what you want to do is go into a light room, a room that's got a lot of air in it. Okay, you want to have windows open. Ideally, you want to go, like I go into the shed at the bottom of my garden when I'm roughing stuff, and I rough stuff a lot. And then what you want to do is you want to lay all the cards out. Put some sheets of paper down because you don't want to have roughing spray go on your floor. So put sheets of paper down, lay all the cards out. And then the mistake that most people make when they're roughing cards is they give it too much roughing. And it's when the cards are stuck together and they won't separate that happens. And they go, psh, psh. Don't do that. You lay all the cards out, and then what you want to do is you want to come up about an inch to an inch and a half, maybe 2 inches off the above the cards, and you want to just give it a light roughing. You just want to go back and forth twice. I go up and down the rows. I've made rows. I go up and down the rows, and I'll go back and I'll go up and down the rows again. Then leave it for at least an hour. Leave it for at least an hour. It will then dry, and you'll find it will be as good as new. So if you need it more gaffed, if you need it more roughed, that is what I recommend you do. Okay, hope that helps. Okay, so the next question is from Gary Davis, and Gary says there's a magician in England called Joe Barry. He came to Australia for a magic convention, and he was great and changed the way I thought about magic. And Joe's very generous with his time. It'd be great if you could interview him on or anything. Love your work and love the art. Can feel it coming down the line. Yeah, Joe Barry is awesome. I'm a big Joe Barry fan. He's kind of vanished off the face of the planet. I can't get hold of him. He was on a list of people for me to interview, and I just don't know where he is. He just doesn't appear anywhere. Like when I Google Joe Barry magician, there you go, Joe Barry magician. I'm Googling it right now. His Penguin Live comes up. His videos with come up. He's got there's a link through to the Magic Circle, to the Newcastle Magic Circle, where he did a lecture back in 2018, and then there's a link to a magicians forum saying, does anyone know how to contact Joe Barry? There's nothing. The short answer is no. If anybody can figure out how to find this guy, I would be more than happy to interview him. So please tell me, if anybody knows where he is, let me know. I would love to interview him. Okay, so the next question is from Sting, and Sting says, you mentioned you're a big fan of Pat Page. Recently watched some of his material. I was surprised that my own sponge ball routine I started creating and developing fits me, includes a lot of the structure like Pat's routine. That made me wonder if you could do a 5x5 by the great Pat Page. Absolutely, 100% I will. One of the things that I love is recently Ryland on his Instagram channel put a video of him doing the sponge balls to a group of kids, and he did the exact Pat Page routine, and his daughter went on there and said, oh, my dad would be proud, and Ryland was so made up about that, and so was I love Pat Page with a passion. I love that man. So 100%, 110% I'll do a 5x5 on Pat Page. Keep watching, it'll come soon. Okay, so we have another question from Sheridan Coldstream, and Sheridan's got another coin question. I've been devouring in the beginning. There were coins and David Roth's work, and now I'm working on Gadabout coins. Loving the utility switch, but still struggling with the click pass that leaves no coins in the receiving hand. Any questions? What you're talking about there is a multiple click pass, and there's lots of multiple click passes that you can learn. Lots of them. In fact, there's about 7. How many, Luke, are there on Netrix? About 6 or 7?
Which ones are that?
The multiple click passes, the click passes section.
Yeah, quite a few.
He's looking. While I'm answering this question, he's looking. There's quite a few. How many click passes?
We've got 11.
11 multiple click passes on Netrix. There you go. The one that I think is taught with Gadabout coins from memory is the one where you do a vanish, like a retention pass, for example, ending up with the coin in classic palm. This is the one I'm sure that it's taught. So you do this, you say that's 1, that's 2. And obviously you haven't got anything over there, and you've got 2 over there, which is a classic click pass, and it's one that a lot of people struggle with. The key thing is, when you do the first vanish, you want to end up with that in classic palm. So you might want to do, instead of retention vanish, you might want to do that sort of vanish. Then you take the second one and you hold it in fingertip rest. And the key thing here is to let the classic palm coin drop off the coin on fingertip rest and land there. You don't want it to go in. This is not what you want, because that's a normal click pass. You want to have it both land there like that. And then you can use your thumb to pull that back into finger palm. And it's really just a practice thing. It is actually not an easy move to do. But when you get it right, it looks really good. You know, it really looks like kind of 1, 2. An easier click pass that just uses finger palm is this. You show the 2 coins and you go 1, 2. And you take the 2 coins one at a time in the hand, but they're both in finger palm over here and there's nothing over here. And to do this, you hold the 2 coins at the tips of the fingers. The bottom coin is away from you. The top coin is towards you. And what you're going to do is you're going to apparently take one of these coins like this. But in reality, what you're going to do is you're going to allow that bottom coin to fly back into finger palm. Okay, so it's literally just flying back into finger palm like that. But if you combine that move, and it's really just an inertia thing, you just literally allow it to drop into finger palm. But if you do that as you apparently take the coin, you get a really nice retention of taking that coin in this hand, but really it's in finger palm. Now, if you then come back over and take this coin and allow that to drop in finger palm, because there's already one there, when you take it, they hear the clink of this coin dropping against this coin in finger palm. But they assume that that's the clink of the coin going and hitting the coin in this hand. So you end up with 1, 2. And it looks very deceptive. And you can take that last coin either by taking it like that, or you can do a drop. So you can take the first one and just drop the second one, apparently drop it in the hand. But really it's dropping against the one in finger palm there. So you go 1, 2. And that's a lot easier because you're not having to use classic palm. It just take the 2 coins and just practice throwing them back into your hand. But you get it right, it's very, very deceptive, right? So if you're doing Gadabout coins, I think the final phase, you only need to do a multiple click pass in the final phase from memory. And in the final phase, you'd say, look, that's 1 coin over here. Because the other thing is you don't have to hold the 2 coins like this. You could show the 3 coins and just do 1, 2, and put that one in your pocket and dump all 3 of them, which is what you need to do in Gadabout coins. So with that, you'd have the 3 coins held like this. And you'd take the first one, drop it into finger palm, take the second one, drop it into finger palm. That leaves you holding the last one, which you can put in your pocket and get rid of all of them. Or you can just take the first one, just pick the first one up and just drop it into finger palm as you take the coin. Pick the second one up and drop it into finger palm as you take the coin. And then just pick up this third one and put it in your pocket. So you don't have to have them held in a fan. You can just go 1, 2, and this one goes in my pocket, 3, and then you're ready for the finale. Also on net tricks, I've got a trick called, Luke, is it called Bulls? The one with the little silver balls? It is, isn't it? Yeah. I've got a trick called Bulls, which is based on Gadabout coins, but it uses little chrome balls instead of coins. So you do the same routine basically, but instead of having everything vanish at the end, they start going twice as big. So they go from 1/2 inch balls into 1 inch balls, and then at the end you take one of the 1 inch balls and it turns into like a 3 inch ball. So that's a really nice routine. That's on there as well. That's called Bulls, and that's very much based on Gadabout coins. But in answer to your previous question with the multiple click pass, yeah, the one that's taught in Bobos is this, which is not an easy one, and you have to have a really good classic palm. But this one here in finger palm, this is a lot easier. 1, 2, put that in your pocket. Much easier way of doing it. And then eventually you can progress to the Viking Vanish, which is my favorite multiple click pass, where you show 2 coins, drop them in the hand, put this one in your pocket, and you're good. It's all on Netrix, but not that I'm trying to pimp Netrix out to you, but there's 11 click passes on there, so one of them hopefully will work for you. Okay, so the next question is from King OK, and he says, love the channel. In my opinion, it's the best magic channel on YouTube. Thank you. Can you do a breakdown of a Zoom show you like you did with a kids show and a parlor show? It's on there. It's on there. It is absolutely 100% on there. We did a Zoom show breakdown. I'm sure we did. Zoom show breakdown magic TV. Hang on a minute. How to run a Zoom magic show. Magic stuff. Yes, we did it a year ago. Jack, the Zoom show, the how to run a Zoom show. This one here, how to run a Zoom show.
Yeah.
When you put the Q&A live, can you put a link at the top through to how to do a Zoom show.
Can
And
indeed.
just link that for the guys. So there you go. Look for a link in the description. If the link is not there, it's Jack's fault, and you can all point to Jack and tell him he's useless. But if you oh look, I'm talking myself. There you go. But if you look up that description, that's a full breakdown of a Zoom show. And I also talk about the tech and the equipment and the stuff that you can use and so on and so forth. So go check that description out. It's in that link out. It's in the description. Okay, so the final question today is less of a question and it's more of a statement, and it's come from various different people. And it's a lot of people saying, hey, thank you very much for finally launching the Netrix. Now, I'm going to be doing a couple of videos next week answering everyone's questions about the Netrix. I might even do a live stream, and I'm going to answer everybody's questions about the Netrix and about what's going on. For everybody that's asked about it, and everyone who's commented about it, and everybody who has subscribed to one of the platforms or one of the packages, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's 2 years of hard work, and the vision was many years before that, but the fact that we've eventually got to the point where it's launched, thank you to everyone that continues to have faith in me. I really appreciate it. So there you go, guys. That's another Q&A in the bag. Thank you so much for joining me here on a Sunday. Don't forget, if you're at the Wessex Magic Convention, come and say hi. I'm lecturing at 4 o'clock there today. Also, don't forget, you want to see more videos like this, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below. If you haven't already done so, the Netrix is now live. Go to www.thenetrix.com and you can subscribe from there. I highly recommend it. I think it's absolutely awesome. The choice, of course, is yours. Any questions that you've got, please let me know by asking them in the comments to this video. You gotta put them in there today. You gotta put them in there before Wednesday next week. That's when I'm going to be shooting the Q&A, Wednesday next week. So any questions that you've got, leave them in the comments down below, and I will see you again tomorrow. Well, actually, I'll see you later on today. I've got 2 more videos, 3 more. At 2 o'clock, there's going to be a shorts. At 6 o'clock, there's going to be a Magic Live, and then at 9 o'clock, I'm going to be back with a review show special all about Vulpine Creations, coffee, cups and beans. I've got an interview with Adam Wilbur. I'm going to be talking all about it. And I've also got a live performance of both myself and Ryland doing the coffee, cups and beans. So go check that out, 9 o'clock tonight. You want to know if it's any good? That video is going to answer all your questions. And then on Monday, we're going to be back with a 5x5. Guys, thanks very much for watching. I'll see you again. My name's Craig from Magic TV.